All right. Hello and welcome to Around the Horns. I am Aaron. I'm here as always with my co-host Zach. Zach, we got a lot to talk about today as usual. We had a long weekend in Houston. Saw Texas play a lot of intense and fun baseball games. We've also got a very busy week ahead. So we are here to discuss all things Texas baseball. We're going to cover the Shriners Classic. We're going to touch on the crazy game in San Marcos last night. And of course, we are going to preview the upcoming trip out east to South Carolina. Zach, how you doing?
Doing good. A little late night down in San Marcos, or I guess up in San Marcos, but yeah, doing well today.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's been a crazy week of Texas baseball. They're in this crazy stretch where they're playing a ton of games on the road. They had the neutral site games in Houston. So, yeah, let's just start there. Let's talk about the Shriners College Classic. Zach, we'll go game by game here. Friday night, they took on Tennessee, a team that really impressed me, but we can get more into that. But I mean, Texas walked away with the victory. Pete Hansen was pretty solid once again. What are some of the main takeaways you saw in the Tennessee game?
Yeah, so Tennessee, that true freshman, Chase Burns. I don't know how Vitello got him away from the draft, but that dude's legit. He was hitting 95, 96. He's a hard thrower, but he commands well. He has got good life on his fastball. He was electric through 4 innings. He really had the offense off tilt. But I felt like the Faltini hitting that home run kind of, I don't know if it shook him a little bit or shook the coach's faith. I mean, he was at 81 pitches, so he could have gone another inning for sure. But that was really the turning moment of that game. Texas, they held in there. They do like what I call the Landon Sims game plan. You hold back, you hold back, you just stay in there, you keep grinding, and at some point they're gonna have to bring in someone other than the ace. And that's when Texas pounced.
Yeah, we were talking to Ivan after that game, and we were asking him, is Chase Burns the best pitcher you guys have seen? He was like very obvious. He was like, oh yeah, by far Chase Burns best pitcher we've seen. And then he started to talk about that. He was talking about how our goal is always to get the starting pitcher out of the game. Once we get to the bullpen, we feel like we can do a lot of damage against the other team's bullpen, and that's what we saw. Especially Ivan, he had back-to-back extra base hits in that Friday night game. So it was, Chase Burns did dominate them. I did want to talk about that a little bit. It was kind of a weekend filled by Texas strikeouts on offense. I've got the numbers here. They had 37 Ks in all three games combined. We'll get to the other two games later, but Chase Burns did kind of have he had their way. He had his way with them, but like you said, they were able to get the pitch count up just enough. And then, Pete Hansen was solid once again with letting that defense work behind him.
Yeah, Hansen and the bullpen came in, and after watching all of Tennessee's games this weekend, I really believe that Tennessee is a top 5 team. Like, they've got a legit offense. They ran into the Hansen buzzsaw. The dude is, he executes really well. He locates well. He's not a hard thrower, but he had him off tilt and kept him at bay. And then the rest of the bullpen came in and did their job. It was a really fun game. I think I was more so. I think we talked about this last week. I was more excited to watch that game due to the revenge factor and what Tennessee's kind of building right now. So that was it was a good time on Friday night. So
yeah, I completely agree with Tennessee. I walked away from that game thinking they're probably going to make it back to Omaha because the pitching really impressed me. I mean, they had some guys in the bullpen that were coming in and throwing strikes. They had a lot of guys with some really nasty stuff. And then that offense is just going to carry them. We know they play in a ballpark that's pretty small, and their offense is just built to completely mash other pitchers in that ballpark. So they're going to win a lot of home games. So if they end up hosting regionals and super regionals, they're really built to win in that park. The pitching was better than we expected. So yeah, we're both on the same page there about Tennessee. Speaking of another SEC team, I was a little less impressed with LSU, but let's just start with that environment on Saturday night. What did you think about, the 30,000 or the 20,000 plus that were packed into Minute Maid Park there?
Yeah, that was awesome. I think it was 24,787 total fans. I think I read it was the 7th largest ever college baseball game attended.
Huge, yeah.
You knew there was going to be a lot of LSU fans. They travel really well. That's a diehard fan base. But then being downtown at the hotel, like, you walk downstairs and it's just nothing but a sea of purple. And when you're getting some breakfast, that was an early indicator that night was going to be pretty electric, right? So, they were loud. They were there early. That I think at one point when we were doing pregame, I looked down and I was like, I hope the Horns fans are just having a beer right now in the concourse, because it was,
Same thing.
I think it was at least 65% LSU fans. But yeah, they were loud. It was an electric atmosphere. I think post game we talked to the team, and they were saying, this reminds me of anything else. This reminds me of Omaha. This is what baseball is like in June. And so, yeah, that was a lot of fun. But those LSU fans got real quiet in there in that second inning when Hodo laced that home run, to 3-run home run to left field. So
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the LSU thing, it was crazy. I agree. I think it was about 65%, but man, they were just waiting to like go crazy and break out the whole game and really get the crowd into it. And Tristan Stevens just would not let it happen. I mean, I had questions. I love Tristan Stevens. I think he's an amazing pitcher. I didn't know the stuff could be that electric to where he could dominate a lineup with so many potential MLB players and like so much top SEC talent. I thought it would be a bit of a grind. I thought there would be more runners on base. He would need some big double play balls, but I mean, he was quick, he was efficient, and that slider, I think it's even better than I thought, because it was completely dominating the LSU hitters all night long. He went 7 strong against this lineup. He didn't allow a run. He still hasn't allowed a run the whole season. So the main thing I was watching for going into that game was, what is Tristan Stevens going to look like against an elite offense? Can he really put up these dominant numbers? And I mean, it was only one game, but he passed that test, and I was really impressed by Tristan on Saturday night, especially in that environment.
yeah, I think everyone was kind of having the same thoughts. I mean, we've seen him do it in Omaha last year. We saw him all of last year. He's that kind of stalwart. But I was worried. I mean, they got Cruz, they got Barry, they got Morgan. Like they got some good hitters. Thompson hit the game running home run against OU the night before. LSU was feeling it coming into the game. They were ready to hit. They were ready to pounce. And Texas pitching didn't allow him. The freshman Harrison, who I think everyone loves at this point, the Iceman.
Oh yeah.
He came in and the moment wasn't too big for him. I think that speaks volumes. He shut him down as well. The hits that they did give up, it was all singles, and they didn't allow extra base runners. They didn't allow anyone cheaply on the base. And so, yeah, that was a fun game. I think the LSU fans I talked to afterwards, and especially a bunch of my buddies, they were very impressed with Texas. I think we surprised them a little bit coming in there and beating them like that. So,
yeah. And then long term with LSU, we both think Tennessee might be Omaha bound. LSU's a little more questionable. We both had questions about the bullpen, and I think the bullpen was a little better than we expected. They have some guys that can give them some quality innings. The Friday night guy, Money, he looked really good on Friday against Oklahoma. Then the starters after that, they were so they didn't really have a set plan for the starter on Saturday against Texas. But the offense can mash, especially 1 through 5 in that order. But I'll let you talk about the defense, because it really is a real issue that might limit their ceiling throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, just touching briefly on the pitching. So Blake Money on Friday night, he's going to keep LSU in the game. That's what he does. He's a really good pitcher. He's looked great this year. Their normal Sunday starter, Ty Floyd, they actually brought him forward a day just to pitch against Texas, because LSU was trying to get that win after that big win the night before over OU. And I don't know what they have as a third starter. Mikhail Hilliard has been so. Their bullpen, as you said, they actually did a little bit better than I expected. I think they got some good arms in there, but long term, I definitely worry how they're gonna react in a regional or super regional, because I don't see them lining up in just being able to sweep someone across. And then you get to the defense, and I think I might have made it the call a little league defense out there once or twice. Yeah. They had, I think it was 5 errors officially recorded against Baylor on Sunday night, and one should have been a 6. They had at least 2 or 3 against Texas, and then just multiple, a poor relay throw that really should be scored an error. A really bad throw to first base on what should have been a fairly routine play. That's going to cost them. I mean, they had 5 errors against La Tech. This is a team, if they don't figure it out, that they're not going to get to a super regional. That will absolutely hinder them. So,
yeah, because I mean, a dominant offense like they have can take you a decent way, but it can't take you all the way, because eventually you're going to run into top pitching. And when you run into that top pitching, you're inevitably going to be in close games. You're going to be in, 5-4 games, 6-4 games. And in those tight games, you're going to have to make defensive plays. 1 or 2 miscues can be the difference. So they're going to bash their way to a lot of victories just because the top 5 in the order is that good. But yeah, I think we're both in agreement there that it just limits the ceiling of like what they can really do long term.
Agreed.
Yeah, and then Sunday was a different story for Texas. I had a feeling it was going to be a trap game even before we got to the park, just because the crowd was incredible on Saturday night. It was such a big win. LSU was coming in hot after a big win over Oklahoma on Saturday. They were really fired up for that one. They had a chance to, take 2 out of 3 on the weekend. And then we get the news that Tanner Witt has been scratched. Lucas Gordon's going to start. We see the lineup, Ardoin's not behind the plate. Kimball Schuessler is batting 9th. Mitchell Daly's not playing. And then, we both kind of looked at each other after the pregame. We were like, this is going to be a little, this one's going to be interesting. This is totally, this one has a different feel to it all of a sudden.
Yeah. It was, people don't realize, but the 3, like, it's hard to sweep in baseball for a reason. And more so when you have a really emotional win the day before, and then you compound that against an emotional win on Friday night. So Friday night, the team probably didn't get back to their hotel till 1:30 at the minimum. They're not in bed, sleep until 2:30.
I know I wasn't.
Yeah, for sure. You're posting the late night. And then they turn around on another top 10 team on Saturday night. And it wasn't as bad. It was only a 3.5 hour game, but still they're, midnight or later. And then you have that midday or the, mid-afternoon game on a Sunday. It's a travel day. This is their 4th day on the road because they had played at Sam Houston in the midweek. Like, they're just, you could tell during warmups, they're tired. They weren't clean. I think I mentioned like Messenger, infield didn't look pretty. And normally when you watch Texas do infield, it's a ballet out there, right? Everything's in sync. And then we kept waiting for the lineup. We finally get the lineup, less than an hour, which is unusual. And there's no Witt. We're like, oh crap, what's going on? And, we talked to sources and they're telling us, look, it's just precautionary. It's nothing to worry about. But anytime you scratch your Sunday starter and a guy with the potential like Witt, that's going to affect your team, especially at the last minute. That throws off the entire mood. And, I think one of the biggest things was not only that they did not have Witt on the mound, they didn't have Silas behind the plate. And this is nothing against Kimball.
Yep.
I thought he did an okay job. He had a couple of throws and, framing jobs, could have done a little bit better. But Silas is an elite defensive catcher. That dude frames the pitches really well. He keeps the runners in check. And the little man, Oyama, 5'4", 150 pounds. He gets on. You could tell he's going. He steals second. He steals third. He gets on again. He steals second again. Like, they couldn't stop him. It got a little ugly. So
yeah, it had that feeling early. I mean, touching back to the schedule, UCLA had the early game on Friday and the early game on Saturday. So they were well rested. And like I said before, when Texas is the number 1 team in the country and they're the University of Texas, every single game that they play is going to be the biggest game of the year, the biggest game of the week for that other team. UCLA had the Texas game circled on the calendar, where, the Texas team, they probably had the LSU game circled. They were fired up for the Tennessee game, and they would have obviously loved to win. They always talk about winning on Sunday, but it was just a really tough spot. You mentioned Schuessler, nothing against him, but, he's just not Ardoin. Ardoin is an elite defensive catcher, and you got a guy like Lucas Gordon making a start kind of at the last second. It would have done a lot to have Ardoin back there, kind of just guiding him through the start. And he didn't have that, especially same thing with some of the young relievers that came into the game. So
yeah, and then UCLA, the day before they run ruled OU 15-3. So they had a long break and they were feeling good about themselves coming into that game. It was, I don't want to say perfect storm, but it was essentially the perfect storm for Texas to drop a game with their first of the year. So
yeah. And then we talked about Tanner Witt. He's going to throw a bullpen on Thursday. Hopefully that goes well. That'll kind of determine his availability for Sunday. So, follow us on Twitter, check in on Orange Bloods. We'll be giving you all the updates on Tanner Witt come Thursday heading into the weekend. But I think that's pretty much all I have to talk about. Mitchell Daly needs to get going a little bit. And then one other thing I had noted, I'm starting to realize who some of my favorite players to watch are on this team just overall. I think Hodo and Murphy Staley are just like, they're kind of my guys at this point. I really love watching those guys. They're a little under the radar because you've got Silas, the catcher, you've got Ivan, obviously, but Hodo and Murph, those are kind of my guys right now. I love watching both of them hit. They're so consistent. They can do so many different things, and they're just kind of relentless at the plate.
Yeah, Murph is just a guy, he has really fast hands. We're sitting there last night, and we'll get to this in a minute, but when you watch him up close, you just watch how fast his hands are and how fast he gets the bat through the zone. There's a reason he can hit gap to gap without an issue. If that kid were a couple inches and a little bit bigger, the sky would be the limit for him because he can just rake. I love watching EK play left field, because he's so fast. But Hodo has absolutely shocked me with his coverage in center field.
So much range.
Yep. The best center fielder I think I ever saw play for Texas is Drew Stubbs, because that guy just glided around. Everything was just easy. Hodo's not there, but he covers the field. I mean, he made Minute field, center field looks real small. Coming into the game or coming into the or infield, going out to the wall, everything was just, it was there for him. So yeah, that was fun to watch. And then, two other things is Baylor's Tyler Thomas on Friday night. Really that dude's going to win him some games. He's going to keep him in. And then OU, I feel bad for Skip. I think I've said this before. I love Skip. He's a great guy, former Texas coach. Don't want to see OU have success, but I want to see him have success. But man, outside of his Friday night guy, I don't know what they have. There's not a lot of depth there. So
yeah, the Friday night guy for OU was very impressive. But yeah, after that, it was rough very quickly. You have anything else you want to hit on in those 3 games before we give out some fun to watch awards?
No, let's do some fun to watch awards.
All right. I'll go ahead and start us off here. So I personally had a lot of fun. We just talked about OU. I had a lot of fun watching them kind of get dunked on 3 days in a row live from MLB press box. It was a cool experience the whole weekend for me. And then just getting to sit there and watch Oklahoma lose 3 straight games, a couple of them in heartbreaking fashion. That was a lot of fun for me, especially there was a foul ball in late in the LSU game, and their left fielder was running over to make the play. It looked like he might go into the stands and catch it, but that did not happen because there was a kid dressed in Texas gear. He made the play legally. The ball was in foul ground, so he's allowed to try to make the play. The Oklahoma guy was kind of dumbfounded, and then after that moment, LSU bats came alive. The Oklahoma bullpen melted down. LSU ended up winning on a walk-off homer, and it kind of felt like a reverse Steve Bartman type of thing that was going on there for that Texas fan that made the play down the line. So that was my first fun to watch award.
Yeah, those were awesome. When I was watching that, I saw that kid and I thought he was just wearing an Astros shirt because he had a coat or something on over.
Yep.
I was like, that can't be. And then I looked at the TV. I was like, oh my gosh, that's a Texas fan. I was like, that is priceless right there. That's a memory he's going to take away for a long time.
Yeah, it was perfect. And then my other one was just already mentioned a little bit, Tristan Stevens and Luke Harrison coming in big situations and completely silencing the LSU fans. They were dying to get into the game. They were getting really loud at certain times that the crowd wouldn't even really get loud into the game just because they were trying to force some action. And then every time Tristan Stevens and Luke Harrison just completely shut them down, put them back in their seats. So I had a lot of fun just with that whole environment and then the performance of Stevens and Harrison.
Yeah, that Tristan Stevens last strikeout, or I think it was the last strikeout when he came off the mound, he was feeling it. He had the strut going. He's pointing to Texas. He was telling the LSU fans, look, we're Texas. We're number one. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. On the weekend, and normally I highlight the pitching and defense. I'm going to shift away a little bit from this time. We'll start with the pitching. So prior to last night, 108 innings pitched with a 1.0 ERA, a 0.97 whip, and they had given up 18 total runs, not even earned runs, just total runs. That's ridiculous. 111 strikeouts. Like, these guys have just been on fire. I think you mentioned earlier, Stevens still hasn't given up a run.
Nope.
Hanson's given up 1. Tristan's given up 2. Witt's given up 2.
Yep.
Like, these guys are they're mowing people down, making it look easy. But, one of my really favorite moments, and you could tell after the game that he was just jazzed, was seeing Faltini hit that shot to left field. He was on cloud 9. I mean,
yeah,
he's from Houston area, Richmond. He's attended a lot of games. I think he said 300, 400 games growing up. watching the Houston Astros. So that was really special. That was something that he's going to remember for the rest of his life. And then, we haven't mentioned it, but the Melendez ball, like, I hope that thing had frequent flyer miles. I was a little worried that Russia might think it's, an incoming nuke. Like that thing was launched. You talk about the Space City, Houston, that thing was launched. Like it was on a radar somewhere, because I legitimately started having flashbacks to Pujols against the Astros. That thing was,
I mean, the roof was closed, but if the roof would have been open, that thing would have been out of the park. It would have been on the street, just rolling by some random pedestrians, walking around to grab some food. I mean, it was that far of a home run. It kind of thought for a split second there that, all right, Texas is back in it. That home run tied it. Here we go. The bats are going to come alive, but that just wasn't the case. But man, what a highlight that was. Yeah, that was a pleasure to get to see in person, no doubt.
Yeah, I think I saw a tweet from Swindell, and he mentioned, he was like, I think that at least went 470. I mean, it was a monster. So that was fun.
That was unbelievable. All right, let's move along here. Let's try to quickly move through the game we saw last night in San Marcos. Zach, you were there live. I was watching on TV. Just some of your general post-game thoughts. Texas with a 9-8 victory. Crazy game. Aaron Nixon barely comes through at the very end. So yeah, what was it kind of like there in San Marcos?
Yeah, they officially, I talked to one of the Texas State folks, and they officially can seat 2,500 people at their stadium.
Yep.
Last night's attendance was 3,400, something like that. I mean, the place was rocking. They opened up the softball field, which is just past left field, just to sit more folks. The bullpen area, because they have the open bullpens down the lines.
Saw that. Yep.
People were just basically multiple times the security thought people were in the bullpen. I mean, it was jammed up. They had the metal stands there still. Place was rocking. So it was actually a really fun atmosphere. It's probably the loudest atmosphere Texas has played this year by far. It'll help them get prepared to go into West Virginia or some of the play like Texas Tech in a couple weeks. But what a crazy game. Texas starts off hot, really clean hitting. And then, they have a 3-0 lead going into I think it was the third or fourth.
Yeah, the third, I believe.
And Dre walks the guy. He gives up a single. He might have walked another guy. So the bases are loaded, and, he left a breaking ball hanging, and it was belt high breaking ball right over the middle. And, it was put into the next field, the softball field. That thing was launched. And this was after Faltini made one look just absolutely silly and launched it into the softball field that really got the crowd quiet. So the place was rocking. Texas obviously responded with its own 6th spot in the next inning, because that's been their motto. Even during the Augie days, you never lose an inning. You always respond back. So it was basically a bullpen day, because Dre was brought forward a day due to Lucas starting on Sunday. And Nixon at the end, he did not have any of his stuff. He had no feel for his fastball, couldn't get his breaking ball in there. The ump was pretty inconsistent on the night with his strike zone, what was in, what was out. So I think they were a little lucky, to be honest, to get out at the end. But hey, in baseball, it's better to be lucky sometimes. So
yeah, especially on a midweek game when you're playing so many games on the road in general, you just want to walk away with wins. We talked about Faltini a little bit. You mentioned the home run he hit on just a really smooth, simple swing, and he generated so much power. So that was a really good sign to see. He also made some really clutch defensive plays. He made a play on a ball up the middle where he ranged to it and threw the guy out. He made a really good pick on a 1-6-3 double play on kind of a questionable feed from Travis Staley. And then late in the game, he got the backhand and was able to get the out at third when he would have had no other play. So he was really clutch. Faltini, people get mad with him and frustrated with him every now and then when he'll get hit by a curveball, and then he'll start mouthing off to the other team, and it'll be like, oh man, is that really necessary? But the thing about Faltini is he's the leader on this team. Pierce has said it, people have said it before. He's the emotional leader.
Yeah.
And every team needs that guy that has an edge to him, that, brings something extra to the table, that's not afraid to say something to the other team. He's allowed to get in guys' faces. He's allowed to motivate them. And Faltini is really that guy. He's the heart and soul of the team. So, it wasn't a surprise to see him bounce back after the loss on Sunday and kind of just take command of that game. And not put the team on his back, but he provided the home run. He had a lot of good defensive plays. So it was just a really good overall performance from the leader of the team, Trey Faltini.
Yeah, that dude is always, he makes the difficult plays, whether it's ranging into the hole or, picking off of the bounce, really, not a great throw by Staley to get that double play. He always makes it look easy and effortless. He's a guy that plays with style. He plays with swagger. Like he's going to be chirping. He's going to be yelling at the other team. Yep. But at the end of the day, like, he's just a good guy. I mean, he's fun. It was really great to see after the game. The fans have been yelling the entire time. They're mad that they lost. What does he do? He busts out the boombox, sets it down right outside the bullpen, and plays DJ Khaled. All I do is win, win, win. I'm sure that went over very well with the other opposing team. But that's like the Texas. They feed off that. They feed off his energy. If he has a flat game, you can tell. The other guys around him just don't perform like they normally would. So, yeah, it was good to see that. Really, really tough break for Austin Todd. I feel for the kid. Diving back in on not a very good pick throw either. Jammed his shoulder, dislocated, it Pierce said. He was in some pain afterwards. They're gonna let him rest, see how it's feeling, see what he can do to come back. Pierce said he may be out for a while, but obviously still too early to tell. But that's the same right shoulder that he's had issues with in the past. So, thoughts and prayers to him and his family. He's done so much to come back. It hurts me to see him injured again. So
yeah, there's nothing we can do right now, but just, wait and see and send our thoughts that way. But it would be a big blow, not just for the team, but just like for him personally, it would just be a gut punch. But yeah, besides that, Aaron Nixon, he figured it out. He found a way, which when you're a closer, the most important thing is that you find a way to win the game, which he did, and he has done all year long. But I would really like to see the fastball command kind of get sorted out, because he's been relying on that slider, and his slider is so good that it's enough to get by. But on a night like last night, when he really didn't even have the slider command working, things can get sketchy in a hurry. When we get late in the season, if he continues to have fastball command issues, the good teams are going to go up there sitting slider. And I don't really care how good your slider is. When you have top level D1 hitters, knowing you're going to throw a slider, sitting slider, they're going to eventually start to get to it if that's the game plan. So yeah, I'm not worried about Nixon at all really yet, because he's, one of the best relievers in the country. I trust him with the game on the line, but I'm going to need to see that fastball command kind of get sorted out, or else I'm going to start getting a little bit nervous.
Yeah, you could tell from his warm-up pitches. I don't know if they showed him on TV, but
yeah,
the dude had 3 to the backstop. He was throwing him in the dirt. You could tell, you can tell right away, like, he's not right. He did not have his stuff last night. Just no feel for it. It was a colder night. It was, 48 degrees and blowing. So maybe that had a little bit to do with it. I don't know, but yeah, we need him to get well. The other funny thing was Pierce finally took a page out of the Tulo book, which we didn't mention in the Shriners Classic, but Tulo went absolutely bananas on one of the umpires for a really bad call out of the zone. Yep. Well, last night, EK gets called on a strikeout on a fastball at his armpits. I mean, this thing was so far out of the zone. Even the Texas State folks were looking around like, ooh, that didn't happen, really did it?
Happen, yeah.
Pierce was livid. I'm shocked that he didn't get thrown out, to be honest. I mean, I think he was honestly trying to get thrown out a little bit last night. So that was fun to see, because you don't normally see Pierce get too animated. He's a pretty calm and cool guy. So
yeah, no, that is pretty rare. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see the rematch on Wednesday. We'll see how that goes. It's going to be another tough pitching game for Texas. Going to see a lot of guys that haven't gotten too many innings yet this year. But Zach, Texas has an upcoming spring break trip out to South Carolina. They're going to start off the weekend facing the South Carolina Gamecocks. They're 7-5 right now. They're on a 4-game losing streak. They were picked to finish in 5th place preseason in the SEC East. It's been kind of a rough year for them. Will Sanders is their Friday night guy. He's thrown really well. He's coming off a game in which he had 14 strikeouts against a pretty good Clemson lineup. So, it'll be an interesting test on Friday. After that, it'll be a little more sketchy. So yeah, I'll let you talk a little bit more about what Texas might see in South Carolina this weekend.
Yeah. So, South Carolina, they lost their 1-2 punch last year of Farr, and I think it was Jordan. Those were the mainstays for South Carolina. That's what made them so dangerous. And then on the hitting side, they lost the big home run wrecker, Wes Clark. despite that, they have a pretty solid team this year, though. Hicks, they're one of their Saturday night guys. He goes down due to Tommy John. Their other starting pitcher, Bosnick, hasn't even started throwing yet because he's got a flexor issue. Another two-way player. He's got an issue with his oblique. I mean, it's just been one thing after another for these guys. You kind of feel for them, but outside of Wes Sanders on Friday night, I really don't know what to expect. Like they're gonna rely a lot on Sweat and Gilreath. Those are the guys out of the bullpen that have given them a lot of innings and chewed up a lot. And they've played mid relief. They've started. They've been a saver, or closer to save out the game. So, they got swept by a Clemson team. Now, granted, Clemson is a good team. I think they're going to play have a presence in the postseason. But it doesn't look good for South Carolina going into the number one team. The good news for them is Texas is going to be in the midst of this 10 out of 11 road games. So they might get Texas a little tired after a busy week. I don't know. I think Texas probably be fired up. Their hitting hasn't been great this year. They got 3 guys that are hitting over 300, but outside of Braswell and Esther and Wimmer, the team average is not very good. So they don't hit for a lot of power. I think Texas pitching is going to probably eat them up pretty well. So,
yeah, it'll be an interesting weekend. Just a couple of things that I'm really going to be tracking with Texas specifically. I want to see Mitchell Daly start to get it going. He looks like he might be hitting in the 9 hole for a little bit. They're going to try to kind of ease him back in. Hopefully he can get back going, because if he gets hot, it kind of changes the lineup completely. He can be the most complete hitter on this team, which is saying a lot considering some of the performances we've seen so far this year. And then Dylan Campbell, he's going to be playing pretty much every day now. It'll be good to see him get consistent at bats, see if he can get going. We know he has the pop. We know he has the speed. He can be an overall just electric part of this lineup. So I want to see those 2 guys get going. But that's pretty much what I'm looking for. So Zach, predictions for the weekend, 2 out of 3, we thinking sweep. What do we got?
Yeah, I think that Texas, I think they play to their strengths this week, and I think they kind of recenter themselves. I think they sweep. Sanders is going to keep South Carolina in the game, but I think the lineup is going to be able to get to him and, again, take the strategy of see 7 pitches at every at bat, drive up that pitch count and get to their bullpen. And once they get to the bullpen, it doesn't look very pretty for South Carolina. So, as tough as it is to sweep on the road after this kind of busy week, I think Texas takes all 3.
Yeah, we're in agreement there. It's always tough on the road against a decent team, even with all the struggles that South Carolina's had. The game Friday will be close early. Sanders has been good, but like you said, I think Texas lineup they'll know about the South Carolina bullpen, and they'll know all they have to do is, be patient, drive the pitch count up, and then they're going to be in a good spot. I don't see Pete Hansen having too much trouble with this lineup. And then, it's hard to predict a sweep when we don't know about Tanner Witt for sure. If Tanner Witt doesn't start, that obviously changes things. We'll have to see what kind of shape the Texas pitching staff is in heading to Sunday at that point.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna assume Tanner Witt will probably be good to go, at least for a few innings. So I'm gonna go sweep as well, but nothing's guaranteed on the road, especially when you've got some question marks, with availability of Tanner Witt.
Yeah, I think I'm buoyed a little bit by the fact that Tanner said he was ready to go and could have pitched on Sunday against UCLA. His pain tolerance was good. He had been getting a lot of treatment. On Sunday, I think I mentioned it to you, like Tanner was out there for a long time before the LSU game, like right up until first pitch. He was working on his movement. He was doing soft pitch. He was working on his just arm action. I think he was just trying to get a little extra work in to see, how Sunday would go. Obviously anything could happen in the bullpen tomorrow, but I have a sneaking suspicion Tanner's going to be on that mound on Sunday. He's such a fiery guy. The reason Pierce held him out was they had already essentially mission accomplished on Saturday and Friday and Saturday. And so if he wasn't 100%, Pierce is like, you know what, let's back you off. We'll bring you back. We'll have a little bullpen session. So I think Sunday could get sketchy if he's not in there, but if he's in there, I think Sunday's, that's where they sweep. So,
yeah, no, I certainly hope that's the case. Hopefully we find out soon. We'll be giving out all that information. All right, Zach, right before we get out of here, let's quickly hit on some other things that you saw around the country this weekend.
Yeah, I think we'll start with probably the most electric pitcher in the nation, Landon Sims. I think last week I call him the best 0-2 pitcher out there because
Yeah.
he's had no support from his bullpen. He starts off the Friday night game striking 10 out of 11. So he's faced 11 batters. He struck out 10 of them and had a fly out. And then on the 12th batter, or after the 11th one, maybe it was the strikeout, he comes up and he's shaking. He's doing the arm shake. That's never a good thing. The next day, he's the first base coach. That's like double, like just they know
Not
something's
normal.
going on. Nothing's been announced. Like there's been no news at all, but everything that's pointed to a UCL injury or Tommy John is what usually is, you go through. So, college baseball is better when he's in it. And so, just praying for him. I hate to see guys get injured. It sucks. He's got a bright future. Second thing was Zag sweeping Okie State. Just electric stuff. I think they had 3 or 4 guys hitting 95 plus. They have some ridiculous guy hitting 100 from the sidearm. Like, I don't even know how that's possible physically, but those guys they went into O'Brot Stadium and took all 3 from Okie State, which is that's a statement. TCU, they had looked really good and I thought they were finding their way, and then they lose 2-3 to Kentucky, and then they got hammered by Louisville last night. They gave up a 9 spot. They were able to scratch 8 runs and make it interesting, but you got to have some concern about them long-term in a regional, super regional. And then finally Northeastern, not Northwestern. Sorry, Wildcats. Yeah. Northeastern goes into NC State. Tommy goes 1 for 12 and they end up sweeping NC State. That don't look for them in a regional because that'd be ugly.
No. I mean, that was one of my big takeaways. There's going to be a lot of mid-major teams that are really dangerous come postseason time. We kind of thought this might be the case before the season, just with all the eligibility stuff with COVID. There's a lot of older guys, a lot of super seniors, especially at these mid-major schools that are just kind of back for one last dance. And, we saw Tulane, take 2 out of 3 from Mississippi State. They looked really good. Liberty's off to a red hot start. Texas State is a good team. So there's just a lot of mid-major schools that are going to make an impact this year. That's kind of been one of the things I've noticed early in the year. But I mean, we're getting into it. We're getting closer to conference play. We're starting to learn more about each and every team. You got anything else before I take us out of here, Zach?
No, I think that's it. Looking forward to, a weekend watching baseball from the couch. So
it'll be nice to kind of be back home for a little bit. All right. So with that, you can find us on Twitter. You can find me at Aaron Little OB. You can find Zach on Twitter at Zach at the Dish. Check out all of our full coverage over on Orange Bloods, orangebloods.com. We've got a lot of stuff going up pretty much every day over there on the site. As far as this YouTube video, you can you can subscribe, leave some comments about anything that you want us to talk about going forward, or anything you saw over the past couple weekends, or thoughts about this Texas baseball team. But with that, that'll do it for this 3rd episode of Around the Horns. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will be back next week to talk more Texas baseball.
Okay.
Welcome.